I'm a risk management specialist in the Department of Ag Economics. Well, I was based out of Amarillo up until about a month ago, and then they moved our district extension center to Canyon. And we were there 4 days, it flooded. So then I moved home, but now I'm back in Canyon. So somewhere around the Panhandle is where our office. Been here for about 25 years. Steve was my mentor, so keep that in mind. Whether you love or hate my presentation, it's all him. But what I want to talk to y'all today about, like he mentioned, is the crop profitability analyzer, and then a model that I run called Farm Assistance. And ironically, Joe Outlaw, that y'all will meet this afternoon, he was the director of Farm Assistance. He's the one that hired me, and then he became a whole lot more important than that. So I feel like all my mentors are here today. Joe makes Steve look optimistic though, so y'all will enjoy him this afternoon. He is quite the talker. But what I want to start out today with is I just want to cover this briefly, and then we'll go into our crop profitability analyzer. Is Farm Assistance. It's what I got initially hired for, even though I do a lot of other things now. It stands for Financial and Risk Management Assistance. It's basically a computerized decision support system where we take all your actual financial and production information. So basically whatever you send to your banker, that's information we need. And then we combine it with projections that we get out of the Food and Ag Policy Research Institute. That is Joe Outlaw's institute. He's the co-director. And so the projections that he is giving to the federal government for the last 20 years to help write the Farm Bill, those are the projections that we're going to apply to your farm or ranching operation. I know most of this room is probably farmers. And we're going to give you a 10-year financial and economic outlook. It's a great long-term planning tool. You can find a sample report at this website here. It should be in your book. But I'm going to go over one. The best way to explain Farm Assistance without putting everybody to sleep is to kind of do a real-world example. So this is a producer that I worked with in 2025. I actually worked with him for a lot of years. And I want to show you basically how his report played out last year. He's up in the northern panhandle, has about 9,000 acres. So this is a big guy, big producer. 3,400 crop and 5,600 pasture. All his crop acres were pivot irrigated. I mean, he had some dryland corners, obviously, but they were either in grass or the yield sucked, so he didn't really care about those. He just wanted the analysis to include his irrigated acres. We assumed that he planted about 1,400 acres of irrigated corn, a little under 400 of irrigated sorghum, and a little under 1,600 acres of irrigated cotton last year. He also had a herd of 300 cows and 20 bulls. Calving rate of 90%. That sounds high. And keep in mind, guys, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been working with farmers for 25 years. So I have a really good bullshit radar. Most farmers, if they tell me they have a 90% calving rate, I'm going to say, no, you don't. But this guy actually had a premium herd that he got a premium price on. He had a growing yard, he had a finishing yard. He took really good care of these cattle. So that 90% calving rate, honestly, was probably not out of the realm of probability with him. All right, so once again, he had really good corn yields. That 260 is unusual for a lot of my guys. It was not for him. So that's what he thought his yield and prices would be last year for corn. And then had a cost of about $1,000 an acre. Sorghum, he thought he'd get about 6,000 pounds, and cotton about 3 bales. So I sat down with him, and based on our extension budgets and then his own projections, we built his production information. And then we also sat down and talked about all his financial information as well. This is just kind of his balance sheet. We built an income statement as well. He had a lot of assets, about $18 million. He also had a lot of debt, about $7.5 million. His debt to asset ratio was about 41%. And so what that means is about 40% of his farm was leveraged. He had about $50,000 of cash on hand, about $10 million in net worth. I got a great story about this guy's family living withdrawals. Like I said, we had worked together for about 20 years. He has since retired. But his family living withdrawals went anywhere from about 50 to 70,000 to about 150,000. You know what the difference every year was? Did he piss off his wife that year? I mean, God's truth. Because he had a real bad tendency to buy something first and then ask permission later. So if his family living withdrawal was 150,000, that means she remodeled the house or took the whole extended family on a long vacation because he had done something without asking her. And he was real good about buying like an entire section of land. We're not talking, you know, oh, I bought a pickup type thing. So that year, family living was 70,000 and marital peace was good. He also had off-farm income of about 150,000. Did some custom work for his dad and his uncle. That was very important for him because it gave him a consistent cash flow, which he really needed. So what we did, we took all his financial and production information, and then we applied all the projections that we got out of Texas A&M. So they like to put risk around these operations. So like this is price risk. Sorghum, they thought, this is actually for 26, gonna run somewhere between about $3 and $6 a bushel, average about $4. That's about what it's running now, according to the Dumas Co-op. Cotton somewhere could be as low as in the high 50s, never gonna hit 90, but they had it somewhere in the 60s or 70s. So they kind of give us a top and bottom price range that we actually apply to the local basis, so we're gonna factor that in. Obviously, our corn basis is going to be better here than the national averages. Our wheat basis is going to be a lot worse. So we take their price graphs. We also take their EWAGs. This is a very important term that Steve taught me. These are their educated wild ass guesses as to what they think the rate of change for the input prices are going to be. So they thought between 25 and 26, fertilizer would go up about 12%. Probably done all that and more. They thought fuel would go down this year. Yeah, that didn't really happen. So anyway, but we take all these FAFRI projections and we actually put them and apply them to your farming or ranching operation. And the end result is that we will run 100 possible different outcomes or scenarios for your operation. This is net cash farm income. So we run 100 possible different outcomes. 5% of the time, that's this red line, everything went to hell. It means you had very low prices, really crappy yields, and it was your worst case scenario. That would be down here, that's a 5% line. So when we ran it 100 possible different outcomes, 5% was down here, worst case scenario. 5% of the time, everything went right, really good yields, really good prices. That is your best case scenario. 50% of the time, this producer's net farm income fell within this gray area. That's going to be his most likely scenario. So we could say on average, his income did drop between 25 and 26 projected, but he still netted around $800,000 to $1 million a year. But keep in mind that is net cash farm income. That is not does not include any of his debt payments or any of his family living withdrawals. So he looks good in terms of just his net cash profitability. His equity looks pretty good too. It's very stable over time. The thing that did not look good with this producer though is his liquidity, because his debt to asset ratio, he actually had a lot of carryover debt that he was trying to get paid off year after year after year. And even though you guys know this, he had great equity, he had no cash. And so what this graph shows is that there was an 83% chance in 2025 that he was going to have a cash flow problem. So that was his biggest weakness. Profitability wasn't bad, equity looked really good, liquidity had some problems. So we projected that that would continue to go down, hopefully, as he started to whittle away at that carryover debt and get some of that paid off. And then his equity ratio started, like I said, debt to equity, about 40%. It did drop, but I guarantee this is not what happened, because I've never met a farmer that once you get a little bit of cash, or once your debt level gets in a little bit better place, you're gonna go buy some crap. So the debt levels never fall as low as we project in our model. I mean, do you disagree? I mean, it's gonna happen. So he's probably gonna stay in 30 to 40% for as long as he farmed. But still, overall, his debt levels weren't too bad. So his biggest weakness was his liquidity. Okay, but he wanted to buy something. And so to me, this is kind of the biggest power of farm assistance, is that he wanted to evaluate an alternative. So once I ran his status quo, which is what he's doing now, then I could simulate something he was thinking about doing. So he had this one section of land that he had been crop share leasing, section 41, third, 2/3, sharing fertilizer, chemical, and irrigation. He wanted to buy that section and no longer crop share lease it. But he also wanted, in addition to buy that land, he wanted to refinance a lot of his existing real estate notes and some of his intermediate term debt as well. Because he had gotten himself in a situation where when he I took out a loan, rather than taking a fixed rate, he took a variable rate because it was really low. 2-3 years later, that variable rate was at like 9%. So he was having to pay some really high interest rates. So he was actually wanting to refinance a new real estate note, plus his existing real estate note, plus some of his intermediate term debt. He had to pay a $40,000 prepayment penalty, but he also wanted to drill some new wells, and then just lump it all into a real estate long-term note of $7.4 million that he would finance for 20 years at around 7% interest. He still had that carryover debt. He couldn't throw that in there. He still had some short-term debt. So it didn't fix all his liquidity problems, but he was hoping to spread out some of that debt load over 20 years at a lower interest rate, get a new piece of land, and also drill a couple new wells. So we simulated that alternative for him. And then I was able to do a side-by-side comparison. This is his base or status quo scenario versus alternative 1, which is buying that land. Overall, his profitability ticked up a bit. It wasn't substantial, but it did look a little bit better buying the land than the base scenario. Keep in mind that that doesn't include principal and interest payments. On the flip side, though, his equity dropped a fair amount. So this is his base equity, and then this is alternative 1. And so you're thinking, why did his equity drop? He got all this new land. Well, he got all this debt that was tied to this new land as well that he did not have when he was crop share leasing it. So overall, it improved his profitability a bit, but it hurt his equity. His liquidity, though, actually, his cash position started to look a little better in the long term because he was spreading out a lot of his high interest debt over a longer period of time, and he was paying lower interest rates. And so his liquidity, if we look at like year 2, in 2026, under the base scenario, he had about a 57% chance of having cash flow deficits. Under alternative 1, he had about a 49% chance. So it wasn't huge, but over time, refinancing those problem notes, spreading them out for longer, and having lower interest rate did improve his cash position. But on the other side, it did increase his debt levels. So this is his debt to asset under the base scenario. That's his debt to asset ratio under alternative 1. You can see a big jump in his overall debt levels. So I am not going to tell a farmer whether or not this is a good idea for 2 reasons. One, like I said, these are educated guesses. We're projecting out 10 years. We did not know Trump was going to bomb Iran. We did not know that gas prices were going to go up 40 to 50 cents a gallon. That's all happened in the last 2 weeks. So crap is going to happen that we don't have built into our projections. So that's part of the reason I'm not going to tell you to do this for certain. Also, I don't want you to go to your wife or your baker or your husband and say, Dee Dee said I needed to buy a whole section of land. I do not want to get in the middle of that. But I am going to give you a lot better overall perspective of these different decisions that you're thinking about making. Because in his, it's kind of a mixed bag. Liquidity looked a little better, profitability looked a little better, but his equity and his debt level went down. His debt levels went up, his equity levels went down. But it gives you a total farm perspective. So if you're interested in this program, it's $400 to go through, which is not a bad deal, and I might be able to make you a deal if you need some help with that. But I passed out some brochures, these farm assistance brochures. My new address is on the back, and all you have to do is just right on the other side of my address is a informational sheet. You can fill that out. You can hand it to me today. You can mail it to this address, put a stamp on it, and I'll be happy to get in contact with you and talk to you about Farm Assistance a little more. If you want to see what an actual sample report looks like, I have a couple up here. I'll just leave them here all day. Don't steal them. Let your other friends look at them first before you steal them. But this is a very small dry land operator that I did down around the Tulia area. So if you want to see what a smaller operation looks like, this is a sample report for that. And so this is what yours would look like. It may be really big or it may be smaller. I do crops, cattle. I've done all kinds of stuff. I've done guar. I've done, y'all know Devon. He had some interesting ideas over the years. I think I've looked at watermelons and apples for him. So anyway, we can kind of do anything. But just to give you an idea of a possibility. The last thing I do once we go through Farm Assistance is that I'm going to show you a stoplight graph. Like the producer samples that we just talked about, his debt to asset ratio was around 40%. Anything less than 30 would be considered very strong. Anything greater than 50 would be considered weak. He was at 40, so he was kind of right here in the average of the middle column. So I'll go through and look at all those different ratios that we analyze, and then I'll tell you whether or not you're strong, acceptable, or weak. Because one thing that I have found with farmers, it's not how well you're doing, is are you doing better than your neighbor? So that's the purpose of this graph. I can kind of show where you fall in the agriculture industry. SLIC program, done it a long time. Think you might be interested. I'll be around for at least part of the day, so feel free to visit with me about it more. Any questions about that? All right, so let's move on to the crop profitability analyzer. This is a really slick tool I helped Steve with. We formed a team. It was me and Steve, some irrigation engineers, several farmers, because we wanted to make sure we had farmers involved in every component of this process. Because what started happening, and it happens to me, it happened to Steve, every single year, December, January, we come up with our crop budgets. So our 2026 crop budgets for the Texas Panhandle, District 1, they're out right now. They're on the Ag Economics website. And so it wouldn't be 2 days later that I would have a farmer call me or catch me in a meeting or call Steve and say, well, you're wrong. Your budgets are wrong. You know, that 220 bushel corn you put in there, I get 250 bushel corn. You know, or that $50 per ton, sorghum silage rate, I just got lowballed at $40 a ton. Your budgets are wrong. Well, guys, our budgets are not wrong. It's that we're trying to come up with average numbers for 22 counties in the Texas Panhandle. And so you can't tell me yields up in like Perryton, that is the sorghum producing capital of the world, is going to have the same sorghum yields as Hereford, which barely has enough water to do much of anything. Yet we have to try to put average yields between those two areas. And so even though the budgets are great, they weren't reflecting what was actually going on in your farm and ranch to the level that you wanted to see. So we came up with this crop profitability analyzer. What it does is it puts our crop budgets, so 2026 in this example, into an interactive spreadsheet. And so we're going to put in all our different budget numbers, but then you're going to be able to go in there and tweak it and put in your individual yields and your prices. And you can tweak what we have as kind of our base or our averages and make them to where they fit your operation. And not only that, you can do some sensitivity analysis. We have it where you can look at break-evens. It'll help you calculate what is your break-even price. What is the break-even price that you need to have return over your production cost or return over your total cost? Because you can't really market your crop effectively if you don't know what your break-evens are to cover your cost, right? This decision aid is going to do that for you. It's also going to look at your break-even yields that you're going to need at different price levels. You can evaluate crop share lease agreements. Let's say your landlord, you're just really barely making it. You want your landlord to start paying for seed. You can simulate some of that in the spreadsheet. And rather than just go to your landlord and say, hey, pay for my seed, you can actually show them why you need him to pay for your seed. And then the coolest part, and to my knowledge, no other spreadsheet that we have an extension does this, We're also able to extend the analysis to evaluate the MVP of water applied per crop to help you determine what is the optimal crop mix for your land. So after you get all the budgets and prices and costs like you like it, then you're going to go in there, you're going to put in what is your average CPM per acre, how many acres you have under pivot, and then what are your water district requirements. So we'll do an example here in a minute. And it's going to show what is the optimal crop mix for your land. And also what is your return over the variable cost for every inch of water you apply for every crop you're thinking about growing. And this is a completely free tool. You can find it, easiest way, 2 different ways you can find it. It has been updated. You can give me a call at this number. That's my office number, but it goes straight to my cell phone. So you can call me anytime. You can shoot me an email. I would be more than happy to send that to you. Or you can find it online. This is just our AgEco extension website, agecoext.tamu.edu. And under new resources, the very first thing right now is the 2026 Crop Profitability Analyzer. So you can download it online as well. Okay, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail with that, but it is in your book. Just know that when we developed this back, 10, 15 years ago? Yeah, 15 years ago. Microsoft had no issues with macros. This spreadsheet has a lot of macros in it. Microsoft, for some reason now, doesn't like macros. So it keeps trying to block our macros that make our spreadsheet interactive. So you'll need to go through it, once you download it, click on properties, say you want to unblock those macros. It's not that hard, it's just a step you have to know to take. I'm going to pass out a sheet here in a minute, and if you want to give me your email address, I will send you an email with the Profit Analyzer attached and instructions on how to do this. The instructions you can also find within the analyzer. It's not that hard, call me anytime, I'll walk you through it as well. So the way this analyzer is going to work is you're going to have your instructions page. Basically it'll tell you how to unblock the file. Also, any numbers in green you can change on a prices tab. Anything in blue you can change within the budget. And we're going to do a live example of this in about 5 minutes or so, guys. So it'll make a lot more sense after that. But the menu page, this is the cool part. One of the cool parts of this Profit Analyzer is that our budgets have 30-something crops. I don't know many of you guys that are growing canola this year. I'm sure there may be a few. You might not care about that. We got tomatoes in there. We got a grant to put tomato budgets in there. I had nothing to do with that. Steve had nothing to do with that. Now we can't figure out how to take the tomatoes out. So nobody gives a flip about tomatoes. I don't want to say nobody. The majority of the farmers in this room do not care about tomatoes. But you can actually go in there in the menu page and select to look at only the crops that you're thinking about growing. And then you leave all the rest out of the analysis. So this example is irrigated corn, corn silage, or cotton, or irrigated sorghum. You don't give a flip about these others. So when you run the analysis, they won't be a part of it. We've got irrigated crops, we've got all the dryland crops you can turn on. If you've got a cash lease agreement, a crop share lease agreement, you can also turn on the tenant landlord scenarios. If you don't, then you can elect to not even have those included. So it allows you to customize what you want your output to look like. Okay, then we go to the prices page. The prices page relates to those prices that are going to be applied to multiple budgets. So if you pay whatever it is on for fertilizer, this is an old example, then you're probably going to have about the same cost per ton regardless of what you're growing. So you enter it once on this page and then it applies to all the budgets. Same way with fuel, whatever you put in for your fuel, it's going to be the same for all your budgets. So if you have prices or costs, they're going to be applied to multiple budgets. You just put them on this prices page. But then we have another tab, which is a budget tab. That's going to show these individual crop budgets that we built into this analyzer. And anything in blue you can change within the budget. And so if you look at this 225 that we have a corn yield and say, hell, I can make 250. You put in 250, it will change this total and change it all the way across. Or if you look at our irrigation and say, we're gonna have a wet year, wet summer, I'm optimistic. And you're not gonna put 22 inches of water on your corn, I'm gonna put 18. You can change that, it'll change it all the way across. Or I'm gonna put 30, and so it'll change it all the way across. So anything in green, you can see that up here, you have to change in the prices page. Anything in blue, you can change within the budget. And then you can see here, this is the landlord share. We assume the landlord pays a third of fertilizer, chemical, and irrigation. Not this example, but in the one that we have online. And then that they also get a third of the crop receipts. You can change that any way you want to reflect what's actually going on your farm. Okay, so once you get all the prices and yields like you like and like you're happy, you can go to the break-even analysis tab. That's going to show, this is for irrigated corn, what the break-even price needs to be to cover your variable, which is your production cost and your total cost at different yield levels. It's also going to show your break-even yields at certain price levels. And then here's that water analysis tab I was telling about. You put in the name of your farm, your total well, GPL, under a pivot. So this is 500, so it's pretty marginal irrigation. 120 acre circle. And then the minimum planting circle size, we ran into that because it was doing weird stuff like you need to plant 83 acres of corn on a 120 acre pivot. Most people don't do that. You're gonna plant in halves or thirds or fourths. So you can put in what type of circle size that you're planning on doing under this 120 acre pivot. And then we put in the water district restrictions. And then at the bottom, it's gonna show the crops that you were interested in. So corn, corn silage, cotton, sorghum. What is the maximum amount of irrigated acres that I can plant under that pivot, under these water restrictions? So if you have only 500 GPMs, you're not planting 120 acres of corn, right? Unless you get a hell of a lot of rain. So it says you can only plant about 80 acres of corn under those restrictions. If I were to change that to 1,000 GPMs, then you can plant 120 acres of corn. And you ask, where are we getting this GPM per acre from? It's mostly coming from our irrigation engineers. Leon New was a part of this group for a long, long time. He helped us set those. Thomas Merrick, another irrigation engineer, helped us set those. If you're not happy with the GPMs, you can go back, change how many acres of water that you're applying to a particular crop, and it will adjust how it all looks with the GPM. But we didn't want y'all messing with that too much because it gets messy in a hurry. But in terms of how many GPMs that you need to grow that crop, those were set by some very, very knowledgeable people. And Steve Amundsen, of course. He was involved as well, of course. Yeah. But once you get all that in there, it's gonna. Yes, sir.
Like if you change the amount of water in the budget, it will come back and reflect in this page too how much acreage.
Right. So yeah. So now if you like corn, this is assuming 22 inches, so you can only plant 80 acres. But if you were to go back to that corn budget and say I only need 18 inches, then maybe you can plant 100 acres. So as you change that number of acre inches applied on a particular crop, then it's going to change the maximum amount of irrigated acres that you can plant under that pivot. Or if you say 26 inches of corn, you might only be able to plant 6 acres. So you can adjust based on how many inches applied that you put on those budgets. And it's actually going to show you in yellow what is the optimal crop mix for your land. You can tell this is an old example because very few optimal crop mixes are going to include dryland wheat this year. I can tell you right now. So any questions on the concept of that? I also got a couple of graphs that just show what we just talked about on the tables. I'll go over here in a minute. But I really want to go live now and spend about 10 or so minutes showing you how interactive the spreadsheet is.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is this better on like a mobile phone or on a desktop?
I'm glad you mentioned that. As of right now, you can only do it on a desktop computer. So we're trying to figure out how to put it online. You can't use it on a Mac. It has to be on a PC. It would be great if somebody wants to give us a grant and we can put it online and make it more interactive where you can do it on your phone. But desktop really works the best right now. Any other questions? Can you pull up my spreadsheet for me? All right. Okay. So this looks just like we talked about online. Here's the instruction page. It talks a little bit about how to unblock if you need to, and then how to navigate from sheet to sheet. Okay. The menu page is where you're going to select what prices, what crops you want to look at. So I'm going to set them all to no right here. What do y'all want to look at? You want to look at corn this year? Corn silage worth looking at? Can anybody get contracts right now for corn silage? You want to do corn silage? Let's throw that in there, okay? Anybody give a flip about cotton anymore? I should say, I had to turn at the Eder County Gin or, Moore County Gin, so we'll throw in cotton just to make it. Okay, and then let's do some sorghum silage. I know several of the dairies around here are doing that. I'm not going to include irrigated wheat unless y'all want to. Irrigated wheat's just damn depressing right now. Do y'all disagree? It's bad. Dryland's even worse. Marcel, how's your wheat looking?
It's dead.
Yeah.
But not that I'm grazing it. The guys that irrigated the bunch looks good.
Well, good. So, all right. Then I'll throw in some irrigated sorghum. Dryland. Let's just do dry cotton and dry sorghum, maybe. We'll throw in dry wheat, too, just for the hell of it. Okay. So once we get, and then I'll go ahead and include the tenant and landlord scenarios at the bottom so y'all can see. So once I select the crops that we want to have included, you'll have to click on Update Workbook. We hired a programmer to make this simpler, and he made it slightly more complicated. Used to you didn't have to click that, but you have to click Update Workbook now. The only thing that I do like about that is when you click Update Workbook, now at the bottom, it won't have all the budgeting tabs. It'll only have the ones of the crops that we selected. So that is nice, is that it actually kind of condenses a lot of our data and cleans it up for us. But once you select the crops that you want to look at, make sure that you click on Update Workbook. Okay, and then we're just going to work from left to right. Let's go to the Prices tab. Can we still get $5 corn today? Okay, I looked last week. It was pretty close to that. Corn silage, 55, 50. I did hear sorghum silage is running a little lower than 50, so let's put that at 40 just for the heck of it. And then I'm pretty sure cotton's not running 70 cents quite right now. It's more like, what, 65 probably? So let's put that at 65. Grazing still 65 cents per pound a gain. Marcel, is that close?
Yeah.
Ballpark, okay. Then the only other thing is let's increase gasoline. I don't think it's running $2.25 a gallon anymore. It's probably more like $2.75. And diesel, what, maybe around $3?
Fertilizer went up.
All right, what do we need to put on fertilizer? Which one?
Which day of the week?
Yeah, you don't. I think we've got dry and liquid nitrogen. Which one of these? You want me to do dry liquid nitrogen, anhydrous, phosphate? Well, which one has gone up? All of them. So, all right. Well, let's just do 600 for this one. Maybe 500. I'm just e-wagging it right now. Show you some impact. I'm just making it look worse and worse. Y'all know that. So, all right. So now that we've got our universal prices tab, basically like we want it, then I can go down here at the bottom and I can look at each one of my individual budgets. And so everything in green, we fixed in that prices tab. Everything in blue, we can actually fix in this universal tab. I mean, in this, within the budget. So let's say for corn, just for kicks, instead of 225, y'all are now getting 240. So you can see how that works all the way across. It's like it's gonna be a pretty dry summer. So instead of 22 inches, let's say we're gonna put on 24 inches of water. And it works all the way across. But one thing I wanna show you on here is with this third 2/3 lease agreement, assuming that the landlord pays for fertilizer, chemical, and irrigation, if we look at the return over variable costs here at the bottom, if you own that farm, it says corn is netting you, your return over your production expenses about $200 an acre. If you've got a third 2/3 lease agreement, you're actually losing $11 an acre, and your landlord's making $200 an acre. And so it can show you that you might need to be talking to your landlord about sharing some additional expenses. Otherwise, he's going to be doing just fine, but you may not be his tenant in a couple years because you're not going to have enough money to operate. So I can go in there and I can say, hey, Mr. Landlord, I need you to pay for, let's live in our perfect world. I want you to pay for a third of seed and a third of harvest. Yeah, I'm aware. So now I can go to the bottom, and now it's not perfect, but your share versus the landlord's share looks a little more equal. So it's great when you're going to your landlord. If somebody lives here, if you've got some landlord's kids in Rhode Island, I'm sorry, you think about a cash lease, but it's happened. I actually worked with several of them. But still, rather than just say, hey, pay for this, you can go in and show that right now, I'm just losing money with our lease agreement. You got to help me out a little bit. You may or may not agree, but at least it gives you a better argument. So you would do the same thing with all your other budgets, with corn silage, total interactive budget. Same way with cotton and sorghum silage. Do that with everything. Then once you get all the budgets looking like you like them, then we can look at this break-even analysis tab. And what that's going to show, this is irrigated corn. We're assuming 240 bushels. The break-even price that I need on corn to cover my production cost, my variable cost, is about $4.15 if I own the farm, $4.62 a bushel if I'm a tenant. The break-even price I need to cover my total cost, that includes depreciation, everything else, is about $5.47 if I own the farm. About $5.30 if I'm the tenant. I don't know why that's off, but anyway, that just kind of shows you at different yields, anywhere from 75% of 240 all the way to 125% of 240. What is your break-even price, whether you're the tenant or you're the landlord, or if you own that farm, in order to cover your variable and your total cost? The spreadsheet right here, what that's going to show you, total revenue for each one of the crops, total variable cost, return over variable cost, and then your total cost, and it'll also show your return over total cost. It's on another page. But what we care about the most on this graph here is that this is going to show your break-even yields per acre. So at the prices that we put in, these are going to be your break-even yields. You need to at least get on corn, 200 bushel corn, in order to have a break-even yield. Remember, we kept those perfect landlord conditions under there. You're going to need at least 1,200 or so pound cotton. And then it's going to show dryland wheat. You're going to need at least 20 bushel dryland wheat in order to break even over your total cost. So this is going to show you your break-even prices, your break-even yields. And then with your irrigation here, why does it have that? Huh. we gotta do one thing. Our dryland weed is gonna be 0 this year. I had to put that in there. Okay. All right. Alrighty. So I went in there and tweaked some of the dryland yields lower because I don't think we're going to get what we were hoping we would get a couple months ago because we haven't had any rain and we don't have any subsoil moisture to plant into. But total well GPM under this pivot, we have 500 GPMs, 120 acre circle. Minimum planting circle size is a 4. And then we've got the water district restrictions here. And then it's going to show you, because remember, I really upped our corn to like, what, 25 inches per acre. Under these water restrictions, you can only plant about 60 acres of corn and 60 acres of corn silage. Or you can plant 120 acres of cotton, sorghum, or sorghum silage. And so this is going to show you, that's your maximum irrigated acres, your return over variable cost per acre, and your return over variable cost per acre inch of water applied. And it's also going to show you what is the optimal crop mix for your land. Under this scenario, it says corn silage looks pretty good. And then it also says, should I plant a dryland crop to go with that for those other 60 acres? And the answer is right now, dryland crops aren't looking too good at all. So maybe you leave that fallow this year. Or maybe let's see if we plant in a little different arrangement. Yeah, that switched it over. So yeah, maybe if we plant it in halves or thirds, we can play around with that. I'm gonna leave it at 4s now. Or let's do the perfect scenario. Instead of, let's say 500 GPMs, you have 1,000 GPMs. Mm-hmm. Then suddenly, it's not 60 acres of corn, you can plant 120 acres of corn. So it will automatically adjust based on what is your water availability and tell you what is the optimal crop mix for your land. And so like I said, this is totally interactive. I'm gonna go back down to 500 again. You can also look at this graph. This is going to show me which crop gives me the best return over variable cost for every inch of water that I apply. And then this is also going to show basically if you grow corn, what it's going to look like if you add some different dryland scenarios. For the most part, dryland doesn't really add a whole lot to the analysis this year. Other years it might look pretty good, but we're just really too dry at the moment. So if anybody wants a copy of this analyzer, like I said, you can download it off of the internet. I've also got a sign-up sheet here. I'm just going to pass it around. Put your name and your email on there, and I will be happy to send it on to you. So, have any questions? All right, well, it is
free.
It's free.
It's updated every year.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Sorry, ma'am. You said it does not work on a Mac.
It does not work on a Mac.
Is it, if you have an Office suite, download it on a Mac?
You can try it and see. So, I mean, a lot of times it'll work. It just won't have all the macros and it won't be quite as interactive. Because I've had some people with Mac that can sort of make it work. But if you want to be able to select your different crops and that component of it, it doesn't work as well on the Mac. So, but PC really works the best.